chosen ones. Lean in for this one. Because what I'm about to say isn't just another motivational talk, it's a message straight from above. God is breaking his silence, and this truth will shake something deep inside you. Have you ever sat in complete silence wondering, God, are you even hearing me? Why does heaven feel quiet when my heart is screaming? Imagine a prophet in the Bible, Elijah, standing on the mountain. He expected God in the earthquake, in the wind, in the fire. But God wasn't there. Then came a gentle whisper. That's when Elijah knew God hadn't abandoned him. He was just preparing him for the whisper that carried the truth. Chosen ones, some of you have been living in that silence. You've prayed, cried, wrestled, and even asked, did God forget me? But here's the bold statement. God never forgot you. The silence wasn't punishment, it was set up, because when God speaks after silence, he speaks with clarity, and right now he's saying nothing will be left unsaid. Every hidden truth, every betrayal, every unanswered why, it's about to make sense. Stay with me through this entire video, chosen ones, because I'm going to break down 7 powerful truths God is releasing to you right now. Each one will open your eyes, strengthen your spirit, and remind you of who you are in the kingdom. By the end, you'll realize the silence wasn't empty. It was loaded with answers waiting to explode into your life. Remember this quote. When God is silent, he is not absent. His silence is often the canvas for his loudest miracles. So grab your spiritual notebook, chosen ones. Let's uncover these truths together. Point 1. Silence was your shield. Chosen one, let's clear up one of the greatest misunderstandings in the spiritual journey. God's silence. You see, silence from the Most High is not rejection. It is not abandonment, and it is most definitely not neglect. In fact, that silence is often the loudest form of divine protection. When you thought God had forgotten you, when you cried out and it felt like your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, what was really happening was a secret operation in the unseen realm. God was not ignoring you. He was intercepting every arrow, every scheme, every plot that was designed to take you out before your appointed time. Think of it this way. If God had given you every blessing the moment you asked for it, your enemies would have had a clear view of your breakthrough. And let's be honest, not everyone in your circle or even in your family wants to see you win. Some smile at your face but are sharpening their knives behind your back. Imagine if God answered you too soon. That new job, that relationship, that opportunity you prayed for could have become the very thing they used against you. That's why he sometimes cloaks you in silence. It's not punishment. It's camouflage. Chosen ones, history itself is full of this pattern. Look at David before he became king. For years he was hidden away in the pastures, tending sheep, while Saul sat on the throne. It wasn't that God didn't see David's anointing, it was that the timing wasn't safe. If David had been elevated too early, Saul's jealousy would have destroyed him before he was ready. And yet, in the silence of those lonely fields, David learned how to fight lions and bears, skills he would later need to take down Goliath. In other words, the silence was training. The silence was protection. And let's not forget Jesus himself. For 30 years, he lived quietly, almost anonymously, working as a carpenter. Can you imagine the Son of God with all that power, all that authority, choosing silence for 3 decades? Why? Because the time wasn't yet right. If he had revealed himself too soon, if he had stepped into his ministry before the fullness of time, the opposition would have cut him down prematurely. The silence was a shield until his appointed hour. Now bring this back to your own life. That season where nothing seemed to move, where the doors stayed shut no matter how hard you prayed. That was not wasted time, it was divine strategy. God was setting up a stage that your enemies couldn't access. He was concealing your name, covering your plans, and hiding your blessings until the moment came when no weapon formed against you could prosper. What looked like a delay was really a fortress. What sounded like silence was really the sound of angels at work, barricading your destiny. Chosen one, here's the part that makes it powerful. When God finally breaks the silence, it's undeniable. The blessing comes in such a way that no man, no enemy, no devil in hell can stop it. That's why when the breakthrough comes, it feels sudden. It feels like everything changed overnight. But truthfully, it was being built brick by brick in the quiet. The silence was the construction zone. The manifestation is the grand opening. So, don't confuse silence with absence. Don't misinterpret quiet seasons as punishment. Remember, diamonds are formed in the dark, seeds grow beneath the soil where no one can see, and the strongest soldiers are trained off the battlefield long before the fight ever comes. God's silence is a sanctuary, not a sentence. Chosen one, if you are in that season right now, waiting, wondering, questioning, don't lose faith. His silence is not neglect. It's the hand of God blocking what you don't even know is coming against you. It's Him saying, "Not yet, my child, I'm keeping you safe until the world can no longer deny who you are." And when the silence breaks, there will be nothing left unsaid. Point 2. He was building your discernment. Chosen ones, silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the language of God that most people will never learn to understand. When the chatter of the world dies down, when your phone stops ringing, when people suddenly vanish from your life without explanation, you're left with something most fear to face: yourself and the still, quiet voice of the divine. It's in this uncomfortable emptiness that your true training begins. While others drown in the constant hum of distraction, you, the chosen one, are being taught to perceive what lies beyond the surface. Silence sharpens your spiritual hearing until you can catch the faintest whispers of truth that the average ear is too clogged to notice. This is why rejection, isolation, and abandonment feel so familiar to you. They are not punishments, but invitations. Invitations to grow, to tune in, and to discover that God's voice is clearest in stillness. Think about it. Throughout history, every prophet, every mystic, every spiritual pioneer spent significant time in silence. Moses was alone on the mountain. Elijah heard God not in the earthquake or the fire, but in a gentle whisper. Even Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. Why? Because silence strips away the illusions, the noise, and the expectations of others. It forces you to rely not on what the crowd says, but on what the Spirit reveals. For the chosen one, silence is less about loneliness and more about alignment. It's like tuning a radio. You turn the dial until the static clears, and suddenly the broadcast comes through. Silence is that dial. The static of human voices fades, and God's frequency becomes clear. But let's be real, it's not easy. When your friends ghost you, you question your worth. When your family misunderstands you, you wonder if you'll ever fit in. And when your prayers feel unanswered, you might even feel abandoned by God Himself. Yet this is the paradox. Silence is often the very answer you've been seeking. It's not that God is ignoring you, it's that He's training you to listen differently, to stop expecting thunderclaps and lightning bolts and instead notice the subtle patterns, the right word at the right time, the inner nudge that won't go away, the dream that feels too real to ignore. These are not coincidences. They are part of the spiritual curriculum designed specifically for you. Science even backs this up. Studies on silence and meditation show that stillness literally rewires the brain. Silence reduces stress hormones, increases memory, and enhances creativity. But beyond biology, silence also opens doors to heightened intuition. Your subconscious processes more, your awareness deepens, and you start picking up details you once overlooked. That's not just science, it's spiritual training in disguise. Chosen ones live in a world where God uses both the natural and the supernatural to shape them. The quiet season is like weightlifting for the soul. Resistance builds strength. The heavier the silence, the sharper your discernment grows. And here's the beauty of it. Once you've been trained by silence, you no longer need the validation of the crowd. Their approval loses its grip because you've tasted the approval of God. People can misunderstand you, walk away, or label you strange, but you've learned something priceless: how to stand firm in truth without applause. You know how to move in wisdom when others act in haste. You sense danger before it arrives. You feel the shift in the atmosphere before anyone else notices. That is discernment. That is vision. And that is what silence has prepared you for. So, chosen one, don't despise the quiet seasons. Don't curse the unanswered texts, the lonely nights, or the closed doors. They are not evidence of abandonment. They are evidence of refinement. You are not being silenced. You are being tuned. And when the time is right, the same silence that taught you how to hear will also teach you when to speak. And when you do, your words will carry weight that shakes rooms and changes lives. Because the power of the chosen doesn't come from echoing the noise of the world, but from channeling the voice of God that only silence could reveal. Point 3, the truth about people is being exposed. Here's the part that's going to make some folks uncomfortable. God's silence was him letting people reveal themselves. You didn't have to chase the truth. He let masks fall naturally. That's why certain relationships crumbled, why fake friends slipped, and why hidden enemies got exposed. See, when you're a chosen one, you don't always get the luxury of clarity served to you on a silver platter. Instead, God sometimes works in silence, not because he's ignoring you, but because he's positioning you to see what words alone could never explain. Silence is a divine filter. It's a space where lies can't hold up forever, where people eventually show their real character without you having to lift a finger. That's the hidden power of silence. It becomes a stage where everyone plays their part until the truth is undeniable. Think about it. When people know you're watching closely, they put on their best act. They smile, they flatter, they pretend. But when you stop chasing, when you lean into God's quietness, that's when the show ends. Masks get heavy, and eventually they slip. And you, the chosen one, don't have to scream, fight, or beg for honesty. You just stand still and let God's timing reveal the true story. That's why certain best friends who swore loyalty suddenly vanished, why relationships you thought were built on love collapsed overnight, and why the ones clapping the loudest for you were secretly waiting for you to fall. God's silence wasn't punishment, it was revelation. There's a deeper spiritual law at work here, and it's one many overlook. Truth always finds a way to surface. In psychology, there's a concept called leakage. People can't hide their true feelings forever. Anger slips out in sarcasm, jealousy leaks out in backhanded compliments, envy shows up in sudden distance. Spiritually, God allows time to stretch so those leaks become a flood. And by then you can't deny who's really for you and who's been plotting behind your back. The silence was protection disguised as confusion. It was God keeping you from investing energy into people who were never worthy of the destiny he placed inside you. Let's make it real. Remember when you kept wondering why that one friend started pulling away, acting busy, making excuses? You thought it was you. You thought maybe you did something wrong, but no, it was the silence exposing their true capacity. They couldn't stand your light. They couldn't celebrate your growth. And instead of confronting them head on, God simply went quiet, because in that stillness, you'd watch the truth unfold without arguing, without begging, without compromising your dignity. That's why the Bible says in Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness doesn't just bring peace, it brings revelation. And here's the beautiful yet painful part. When these masks fall, it hurts. Losing people you loved, trusted, or counted on feels like a tearing of the soul. But chosen ones must understand this. God doesn't allow people to leave unless they were blocking something greater. If a relationship crumbled during his silence, it wasn't meant to survive your elevation. If fake friends slipped away, they weren't built to hold your blessings. If hidden enemies got exposed, it was because God knew their access to you could have destroyed what he was preparing. The silence was his mercy, even if it felt like abandonment. So don't curse the quiet seasons. Don't mistake the absence of answers for the absence of God. In fact, some of your loudest revelations came in moments when heaven seemed mute. God wasn't ignoring you. He was showing you who deserves a front row seat in your life and who needs to stay in the balcony, showing you that you don't need to chase truth. It will reveal itself in due time, and showing you that the silence wasn't empty at all. It was filled with divine strategy. Chosen one, hear this. God's silence didn't break you. It built you. It trained your discernment. It made you wiser. It forced you to trust what you couldn't see and to watch carefully without interfering. And now, because of it, you walk with sharper vision. You know how to spot the counterfeit. You know how to recognize loyalty without being fooled by lip service. And most importantly, you understand that the silence wasn't a pause in your story. It was the part of the story where God taught you how to see. Point 4. Your waiting was not wasted. Chosen one, have you ever sat in the stillness of unanswered prayers and wondered if God had turned his face away from you? It feels like your cries echoed into the heavens only to dissolve into silence. But here's the truth. Every moment of divine silence was never neglect. It was preparation. Just like Joseph, locked away in an Egyptian prison for a crime he didn't commit, you too were placed in a holding pattern. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. What sounded like silence was in reality a sacred syllabus. Your pain was the lesson plan, your endurance was the homework, and your patience was the final exam. Let's be real. When prayers go unanswered, the human instinct is to assume abandonment. But silence is one of God's oldest teaching tools. Science even confirms this. In psychological studies on resilience, researchers have found that delayed gratification and enduring uncertainty actually strengthen neural pathways associated with self-control and perseverance. In other words, when God pressed pause on your request, He was rewiring you for strength that instant answers could never give. Your spiritual muscles were being stretched in ways comfort could never achieve. Think about Joseph again. 13 long years stood between the dream he had as a teenager and the day Pharaoh placed the signet ring on his finger. 13 years of betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and prison time. If his prayers for rescue had been answered too soon, he would have walked out of that dungeon half-baked, unprepared, and unequipped for the weight of governing a nation. God's silence was not absence, it was the furnace that forged his wisdom. And chosen one, your story runs parallel. You didn't just survive your unanswered prayers, you absorbed divine training that no book, no mentor, no shortcut could have taught you. Here's something fascinating. Many of the world's most impactful people had a silent season before their breakthrough. Martin Luther King Jr. faced years of pushback, isolation, and sleepless nights before his voice thundered across nations. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison where silence was his constant companion. But what emerged was not a broken man. It was a leader tempered like steel. Silence is not wasted time. It is transformative time. God knows that if the spotlight hits you before the character is built, the very blessing you begged for will crush you, so He waits. And while you thought nothing was happening, roots were growing deep beneath the surface. Now, chosen one, the silence is breaking. This is why you feel a shift in your spirit lately, why you're noticing divine patterns aligning around you. You're not just walking into blessings, you're walking in as a different person. You've got discernment where once you had naivety. You've got endurance where once you had restlessness. You've got humility where once you had pride. Blessings without preparation are like heavy crowns on unsteady heads, but blessings after silence fit you like they were custom made. Let me make this plain. The silence was not punishment, it was preservation. Had God answered you in that fragile season, you might have wasted the opportunity or even destroyed yourself with it. Instead, He trained your ears to hear His whispers in the dark, so that now, when He speaks in light, you recognize His voice with certainty. That's why the breakthrough ahead of you won't feel like luck. It will feel like recognition. You'll realize that you were being prepared all along. So take heart, chosen one. Every unanswered prayer was actually a yes, just scheduled for a time when you'd be strong enough to carry it. The silence was the cocoon, and now wings are unfolding. You are not just stepping into blessings. You are stepping into them prepared, seasoned, and unstoppable. The wait is over, not because God finally noticed you, but because you finally became the version of yourself who could handle what's coming. Point 5, God is speaking loudly now, chosen ones. Can you feel it? The silence has lifted, doors are opening, revelations are dropping, and clarity is hitting your spirit like lightning. You're having dreams, sudden insights, aha moments that feel like heaven's voice. That's not coincidence, it's confirmation. In this season of awakening, you may notice your inner compass recalibrating. Small nudges become loud directives, patterns you once ignored bloom into unmistakable signposts, and the ordinary world suddenly hums with meaning. What many call synchronicity, those repeating numbers, the stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear, the book that falls open to the line you were meant to read, is simply life aligning with a deeper frequency you're now tuned to. Scientifically, these experiences aren't magic alone, they're the mind and body shifting into heightened states of attention and connection. During dreams and quiet reflection, your brain weaves fragments into meaning, and when you're in a receptive state, your intuition feels less like a whisper and more like a clear instruction. As your senses sharpen, you might also notice a rise in empathy, a softening around old defenses, and moments when your heart understands something your mind hasn't yet caught up to. Neuroscience shows that our brains are wired for pattern detection and social attunement. Mirror neurons help us resonate with others' emotions, and the brain's default mode network, the area active during introspection and daydreaming, becomes more active during spiritual experiences. That's why revelations often arrive in the margins of your day, on a walk, in the shower, or in the half-wake state between sleep and morning. These are fertile states where the analytical mind relaxes and the deeper knowing can surface. Pay attention to these pockets of time. They're your soul's email inbox, delivering messages in metaphors and images. You may also find that old chapters are closing. Relationships that once fit now feel constricting. Careers that once satisfied now seem shallow, and habits that dulled your light no longer serve. This isn't punishment, it's pruning. Growth requires space. When you let go of what's heavy, you make room for the practical miracles, clearer creative direction, healthier boundaries, more meaningful work. The process can be messy. Transformation rarely arrives with tidy instructions. Expect confusion. Test your revelations against reality, and be patient with the clumsy early steps. Discernment is your ally. Not every flash of inspiration is a roadmap. Compare the insight to your deeper values, check how it affects others, and watch whether it consistently leads you toward peace and integrity. Practical tools make this journey less mysterious and more sustainable. Keep a dream and intuition journal to trace recurring themes. Small rituals like breathwork or mindful walking help stabilize nervous system shifts, and learning basic grounding techniques, such as placing your feet on the earth, drinking water, or a short body scan, will keep you embodied while your spirit expands. Community matters too. Find a circle that encourages honest exploration without pressure, people who hold witness rather than dictate outcomes. Spiritual maturity isn't isolation, it's learning to hold your inner light while staying present in the world. Remember, chosen ones, revelation is invitation, not test. The flashes of clarity are tools, the doors are opportunities, and the storms that follow are part of new weather clearing the sky. Walk forward with curiosity, not fear. Celebrate the small confirmations, build practices that root you, and stay humble in the face of mystery. You were not chosen to be untouchable, but to be present, to bring your unique clarity into a world that's waiting for someone like you. Point 6. Nothing left unsaid. Here's the truth. God is clearing the air. Every lie spoken against you will be revealed. Every injustice will be addressed. Every hidden plot will be exposed. And every prayer you thought he ignored is being answered in ways far bigger than you imagined. Nothing will be left unsaid. This moment, chosen one, is not about coincidence. It's about divine timing. You see, when God chooses to break his silence, it's not just a whisper to comfort you, it's a trumpet blast to the world that his hand has been on you all along. For years, perhaps you've walked through shadows where people misjudged your heart, twisted your actions, and painted you in colors you never wore. Yet in the quiet, God has been gathering every detail, every slight, every whispered accusation, storing them up for the day when truth itself would become your defender. Think for a moment about how nature works. After a storm, when the thunder stops and the winds calm, the sky clears. Suddenly, what seemed dark, endless, and overwhelming gives way to the purest light. That's what God is doing in your life, sweeping away the heavy clouds of deception that hovered above you, leaving behind only clarity, justice, and undeniable truth. Even modern science reveals something fascinating about sound. Sound waves never really disappear. They may fade from our ears, but they continue to travel, lingering in space, waiting to be absorbed or echoed. In much the same way, the words spoken against you, the gossip, the lies, the accusations have not been lost. They have been carried before the throne of God, where truth is amplified and lies are stripped of their power. Nothing is wasted. Not even the silence you endured, because in that silence God was building your character, sharpening your discernment, and preparing the perfect moment to flip the script. It may have felt like God was distant, but silence is not the same as absence. Sometimes silence is strategy. Just as a master chess player holds back a move to expose the weakness of an opponent, God allowed certain things to unfold so every hidden hand against you could reveal itself. If he had spoken too soon, some enemies might have remained disguised. But as the silence stretched, the masks began to slip, the pretenders exposed themselves, and every false alliance revealed its cracks. And now, one by one, the truth is surfacing. Those who thought they buried you are about to learn that God planted you. Those who mocked your prayers will watch in disbelief as the very things they laughed at come to life in front of their eyes. Think about Joseph in the book of Genesis. His brothers sold him into slavery, lied to their father, and thought they had erased him from the story of their family. For years, Joseph lived in silence, misunderstood, betrayed, and forgotten. But when the right time came, the very ones who plotted against him had to stand before him and watch God's favor turn the tables. His silence was not abandonment, it was preparation. And when the silence ended, it ended with a roar that shook nations. The same God who vindicated Joseph is working in your life. He is ensuring that every person who misrepresented you will one day see the truth they tried to bury rise up like a banner. Even history teaches us that silence does not mean defeat. During World War II, one of the greatest strategies was misdirection, allowing the enemy to think nothing was happening while massive preparations were underway behind the scenes. At the right moment, everything was revealed and the tide of the war shifted. That is what God is doing for you. His silence was not passive. It was intentional, and now the reveal is here. Truth is marching to the front lines, and lies are trembling in retreat. Chosen one, understand this. God is not just vindicating you for your sake. He's doing it so others will see that he defends his own. This is not just about your reputation. It is about his glory shining through your story. When truth enters the room, lies don't merely scatter, they shatter. When God speaks, every unanswered question finds its answer. Every sleepless night finds its peace, and every tear you cried in silence finds its purpose. Nothing will be left unsaid, because the author of your life is writing the final lines of this chapter, and he is writing them with undeniable victory. There's another layer to this that is worth remembering. When God vindicates, he does not simply restore you to where you were, he elevates you. He makes the testimony of your life so clear that even those who opposed you cannot deny his hand. Just like Job, who endured false accusations, misunderstanding, and great suffering, you will not only see restoration, but a doubling of what was lost. The Bible says the Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former. That is the pattern of divine justice. It doesn't end in balance, it ends in overflow. What was whispered against you in secret will be overturned by blessings that are too public to ignore. So hold your head high. This season is not punishment. It is unveiling. You are stepping into a time when the silence breaks, when the fog lifts, and when every hidden thing is dragged into the light. God is clearing the air, and once he does, there will be no more confusion, no more second guessing, no more wondering if he heard your prayers. The answer is here, the truth is here, the justice you longed for is here, and the beauty of it all is that this moment is not random, it is divine timing. God waited until the stage was set, until every piece was in place, so that when the curtain rose, his glory would be undeniable. This is your moment, chosen one. Not because of coincidence, but because heaven decided it was time. And when heaven decides, nothing on earth can stop it. Point 7, this truth will free you. And here's the greatest truth: you were never truly alone. That silence you thought was empty, that quiet you mistook for abandonment, it was actually the holiest space of all. In Scripture, we find a beautiful reminder in Psalm 56:8. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Think about that for a moment. Every tear you cried in the dark was not wasted. It wasn't just pain slipping away from your eyes. It was a prayer being lifted to heaven. While you were busy questioning why nothing was happening, God was busy turning the pages of a story that was bigger than the heartbreak, bigger than the silence, bigger than the waiting. Sometimes chosen ones go through what feels like unbearable stretches of isolation. That's not a punishment, it's a divine classroom. Just like seeds buried underground must remain hidden before they sprout, you too had to sit in silence before you could rise into your season. Science even reflects this principle. When a caterpillar is in its cocoon, it looks lifeless. But in truth, inside, it's undergoing one of the most dramatic transformations in nature. That same process mirrors your spiritual journey. What felt like stillness was really metamorphosis. God doesn't rush greatness. He crafts it with patience, precision, and purpose. And now here's the twist. The very ending you feared would crush you is about to become your breakthrough testimony. The silence that seemed like God's absence will be revealed as the backdrop for his greatest presence. When he flips that page, the doubters will be silenced, not because you shouted back, but because your victory will speak louder than words. Your life will echo the truth that God's timing may feel delayed, but it's never denied. That's why chosen ones so often confuse people. Their journey doesn't follow human logic, it follows divine orchestration. Don't curse the silence, don't resent the waiting. That stillness has been your preparation ground. You were never abandoned, you were being refined. And now you stand on the edge of a testimony so powerful it will not only silence your enemies, but hush even your own fears. What once felt like the end is actually the setup for a beginning that no one saw coming, but God had planned all along. Chosen ones, God's silence was never rejection, it was redirection. History itself shows this truth. Think of Joseph, left in prison for years, forgotten by men but remembered by God at the right moment. Or Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading Israel out of Egypt. Even Jesus endured 30 silent years before his public ministry began. Silence has always been God's workshop, a place where hidden roots grow deep before visible fruit appears. Now that he's breaking the silence, step boldly into this new season. The same God who seemed distant is now speaking so clearly that your destiny will echo through generations. So stay awake, spirit warriors, stay aligned and stay ready. This is your confirmation. Heaven has spoken and nothing will be left unsaid.